Welcome to Sex, Love and Science with Lauren Muratore, clinical psychosexual therapist and relationship expert. This podcast explores sexuality, relationships, and the many facets in between, aiming to normalize sexual conversations, issues that we all face. Let's take the taboo out of sexuality and open up the conversations for a better sexual existence. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. Today's episode, I'm going to be discussing sexual rejection. Sexual rejection is something I really talk about a lot in my clinical practice because when I'm seeing couples or even individuals, it's what I see hurts the most. Nobody really wants to sit in that space. And then when they are sitting in the space of hearing their partner saying, I don't want sex, it's really hard to not internalize, to start thinking, I'm not good enough, not attractive, there must be something wrong with me. And look, I'm totally aware that this is a really challenging space for a lot of people to sit in. I'm not promoting or I'm not saying that this is acceptable to always sit in either. Today, we're going to talk about what it's like to feel sexually rejected and then to actually come from that position, change your relationship and start opening conversations up in that space, and then also how to grow from that and feel more empowered. So, we're looking at sexual rejection. This is pretty powerful for a lot of people. I think it's first and foremost important to discuss that it's okay to not want sex, and it's okay for your partner to not want sex. Well, a common complaint that I hear from a lot of people is when their partner says no all the time, when no is the default setting. Now, the other thing we have to consider is why is your partner saying no? That's often not talked about, right? They don't need to have a headache or not feel well or just be tired. Perhaps there's a reason why they're not wanting to have sex. And if that's a relationship issue, perhaps it might look like taking responsibility and accountability for things that you're doing in the relationship. Perhaps you're not listening to your partner. Perhaps you're not helping them with the housework. Perhaps that they don't feel supported by you. And that could be a reason why they are throwing the brakes onto sex. Those are all really different topics and goes back into one of the most popular topics, which is, mismatched sex drives and why people actually want sex. Bringing you back to sexual rejection. How can you actually sit in a space when you know that your partner doesn't want to have sex with you at the moment? It might be forever. It might be just temporarily. But how do you make peace with that? And I think a really important place to start is by looking at yourself and honoring that you're a sexual person. You don't have to be having sex to still be that sexual person. You probably have had sex in the past and you'll probably have sex in the future. The present, if you are having sex or not, does not take that away. That is the first thing, the first key takeaway. Do not look at the past or the future to discredit that you are still a sexual being in the present. Now, what else could we be looking at the moment? Sexual rejection. There doesn't have to be anything wrong with you, right? The way you look, the way you dress, however much you weigh, what your haircut looks like. Just to start internalizing and beating yourself up is just going to erode your sense of self. We don't want that. It's just a really slippery slope, and that can spiral people into many, many, many dark places. So, looking at yourself, telling yourself kind things. A lot of people struggle with this. Telling yourself something nice, talking to yourself like you're a friend rather than an enemy. Why do we have to be so harsh and critical on ourselves? Right? Why are we using sex as the barometer to give it value of our self-worth? It's kind of just unfathomable when you think about it, that my partner's not wanting to have sex with me. Or I'm single and I can't pick up and I'm not getting laid. Therefore, there's something wrong with me. Look, maybe you need to have a shower. Maybe there's actually nothing wrong with you. Maybe there's absolutely nothing wrong with you and your partner just isn't in the mood for sex. Most people aren't having these conversations. They're not, especially if you're in a relationship. I think that's what brings a lot of couples to therapy, is just trying to start having these conversations. So here's some, save yourself thousands of dollars and start having these conversations at home. Why don't you want to have sex? What's going on for you? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? And as the partner who's hearing no, listen to your partner with curiosity and interest and don't judge them. They're entitled to think and feel the way they do. When you start telling them that they have to want it like you, that it's there, that they must desire you, that there's something wrong with them for not giving you what you want, this really runs the risk of putting the relationship in jeopardy and making it even more challenging to talk about sex. So that's another really big sticking point for the person who's sitting in the space of sexual rejection, is to not flip it around on your partner and to not just make self-deprecating comments. Ones I'd often hear would be, well, you don't want to have sex with me anyway. It's been so long that I can't even remember what sex is like. This is hurting your partner's feelings. And I understand you're hurt and I understand you're feeling rejected. But don't bring your partner down with that. Try to make sense and have your feelings heard. Most likely, your partner's going to want to listen to you. Most likely, your partner cares that you're hurt. In cis hetero couples, a lot of the time when the male partner wants to have sex and has been told no, the woman then feels sad. She feels like she's not a good partner, that she's not living up to being a wife. And so women, or actually any partners, pretty open to hearing how you feel. That does not mean that they want to be blamed and criticized for it, but it's important to acknowledge one another's feelings. The next step is, what do you actually do with those feelings? And what do you do about your sex life? That's another episode. Back to sexual rejection. You're now collecting data of understanding your partner's position. This is to stop you from internalizing that I'm not good enough, I'm not attracted to enough, and all of those I'm not enoughs. So we've learned so far, communicate to your partner. Don't make self-deprecating comments. How you talk about the sex you're not having is super, super important. Now, you must be wondering, how do I still have a sexual sense of self if I'm not having sex? How's that even possible? Well, why do you have to be doing something to know that that's still part of your being? As I said before, you've had sex in the past and you'll probably have sex in the future. Why are you so caught up with making sure that because it's not happening now, it's going to be projected into the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? So you can still be a sexual being and you can still have beautiful, if you're in a relationship where monogamy is the general rule, then you can have really great fantasies. You can have solo pleasure time. You can reminisce on your sexual encounters. You can read really sexy erotica. You can still tap into your sexual being, even if it's not being exercised with your partner. Do not lose your sexual sense of self. That's really important, because once you do that, you'll start losing self-confidence. Then you're going to start feeling awkward. And then you're not going to want to engage in sex anymore with your partner. And then we have to unravel all of those layers in therapy. So you're just not practicing at the moment. That's okay. That's okay. Think about other ways to feel good, the non-sexual and the sexual ways. Non-sexual ways could look like giving your body pleasure in different ways that you don't often celebrate. Maybe that's going to an infrared sauna. Maybe that's getting acupuncture, a massage. I'm not talking about a massage with a happy ending, by the way. You might be seeing maybe a myotherapist. Maybe you do some reflexology. Maybe you go to a nutritionist and start rebalancing your diet. Maybe you go swimming. There are different ways to be embodied and feel pleasure. Well, maybe a reflexologist potentially might not bring your feet pleasure. There might be a little pain involved, but some of you might like that too. So think about non-sexual ways that bring your body joy. Sometimes it's as simple as really just sitting out in the sunshine and feeling the sun on your face, or popping your toes into the earth, or walking in the ocean. These are little moments that we really don't think about, and I think it's actually worth being present in your body in non-sexual ways. So start doing a little bit of that. Now, sexual ways. How can you solo embrace your sexuality? Look, a lot of us have a particular style and way of masturbating. It's learned, it's habitual, and of course, we've got our techniques down pat. What if you changed it up? What if you tried using your other hand? What if you tried using toys? For penis owners, masturbation sleeves, vibrators, dildos, and the same goes for vulva owners. Some of you already might be using toys and think it's not good enough and that your partner should be having sex with you. Look, sex is important, but it is not the be-all, end-all of a relationship. It's interesting. When couples report that they're satisfied, women have a higher tendency to report that their sexual satisfaction is rating pretty high. Men, on the other hand, don't report a higher sexual satisfaction, but they will report a higher dissatisfaction relational overall if there's no intimacy present. Very confusing, I know. There's a few studies on that. I will try to find them and put them in the show notes for you. But just think that sexuality is a good slice of the overall relational pie. If you're making it account for 100%, you're going to be incredibly disappointed every single time your partner doesn't have sex with you. Is that manageable for the rest of your life? Could you put that much expectations on another human that they have to always want to have sex with you? That's a tough one. I don't know many people who are up for that challenge. The other thing worth noting is, what expectations do you have, right? Do you have high expectations of your partner? Maybe you do and maybe you don't. Maybe you're just craving that connection that's really been lost. That gets me to the next point of examining your connection. What I often hear people say is that they don't feel desired, that they want their partner to want them. Now, if we go back to the example of a female partner not wanting to have sex with their male partner because they're exhausted and they're just preoccupied and they've got a lot going on, then that male partner is always going to feel that sense of rejection. So what do? So we're sitting in the space of our partner not wanting us and not feeling desired, because most people want their partner to want them. You got to ask yourself, what else makes you feel desired? Besides the act of having sex, what else does your partner do to show that they desire you? A lot of people don't really think about that because they're too worried about the sex they're not having. So I think that's a really important thing to potentially look at. Does your partner tell you you look nice before you go to work every day and you discount it and you can't take a compliment? Look, a lot of us can't take compliments. But that's not on your partner, that's on you to start learning how to accept them. And if you start accepting them, would you then feel desired? So this is some of the work that we can do as individuals when we're feeling sexually rejected and that our partner doesn't want us, because there's always a little bit of work to do in this space and really examine the self. When you can do that, you'll feel more secure in yourself and you'll feel more secure in the relationship, and there probably won't be so much pressure on the sex. So again, it's not acknowledging that it's not going to happen again. It's I'm okay. I don't need sex as validation to confirm that this relationship is okay. But I do need to feel connected in this relationship. So the two of you then talk about what makes you both feel connected. If you've lost that connection, then this is something you really need to start working on. Connection looks very different to a lot of people. I've banged on about connection in season 1 for a very long time, and I'm going to keep going. Because the art of connection is so different for everyone. Some people need to just have those conversations with their partners each day. They want to feel listened to. They want to talk about their feelings. They want to catch up about the day. And that gives them a sense of belonging. They feel heard. They felt seen. And they feel safe in the relationship. Some people are happy to just sit in the room together and not touch one another, but maybe watch a favorite program and laugh and then chat about what parts were funny. And that makes people feel connected. It's going to be very different for everyone. But ultimately, humans really do crave connection. And ultimately, if you feel that you're not connected, then there's a high chance you're not going to be having sex or will be having sex. So work on the connection. This has been a little tiny mini segment today about sexual rejection. Hopefully, I've brought up some big pointers on things that you can look at as an individual to start growing that self-confidence, that self-assurance, and remembering that you're a sexual being, and to engage in self-pleasuring or mental sexual fantasies and embracing them all. I know that you will be having some hot sex soon, hopefully, but for the time being, you're still okay. And I think that's really important. So today's moment of reflection: how do you feel you are as a sexual being? What makes you feel alive? What are you craving? What do you need in your sexual life? And if any of that's missing, think about how you can get that. What brings you joy and what type of person can you have that with if you're single? And if you're in a relationship, how can you harness that together? Can you actually have these conversations and start making these things happen? And if they can't and you're not on the same page, what type of sex life can you paint together? Thank you for joining me.